I saw my dead neighbor standing in my backyard during a blizzard. When I blinked, he was 10 feet closer to my window. Every time I blinked, he moved closer, his frozen blue face never changing expression. That was just the beginning of the worst week of my life. My name is David Mitchell, and I'm a freelance graphic designer. This story takes place in January 2019 in a small rental house I was living in near the town of Moorhead, Minnesota. I had moved there 6 months earlier for a fresh start after a difficult divorce. The house was cheap, isolated, and exactly what I needed to focus on rebuilding my life and my career. The property sat on about 2 acres of land, surrounded by snow-covered fields and scattered trees. My nearest neighbor was Mr. Harold Garrett, an 80-year-old widower who lived in a small farmhouse about half a mile down the county road. I had only spoken to him a handful of times since moving in. He was polite but kept to himself, usually just waving from his porch when I drove past. The week before everything happened, Minnesota was hit by a series of cold snaps that pushed temperatures down to -20 degrees. The local news kept warning about the polar vortex moving through the region and advising people to stay indoors as much as possible. I didn't mind. I worked from home and had everything I needed: food, firewood, and a solid internet connection. On Wednesday, January 16th, the forecast changed. A massive blizzard system was moving in from the Dakotas, and meteorologists were predicting it would be one of the worst storms in decades. The governor issued a state of emergency, and the local sheriff's department was going door to door, checking on rural residents and making sure everyone had enough supplies. A deputy named Officer Martinez came to my house around 3 p.m. that Wednesday. He was a young guy, maybe late 20s, with a friendly face and genuine concern in his eyes. "Just checking on you, Mr. Mitchell," he said when I opened the door. "Storm's supposed to hit tonight. You got enough food and water?" "I'm good," I told him. "Stocked up yesterday. I've got a generator too in case the power goes out." "Smart," he nodded. "What about your neighbor, Mr. Garrett, down the road? Have you seen him recently?" I thought about it. "Not in a few days, actually, but his truck is usually in the driveway. I assume he's home." Officer Martinez frowned slightly. "We tried knocking on his door earlier, but he didn't answer. His truck is there, like you said, but something felt off. The snow on his porch hasn't been cleared in days, and there's no smoke coming from his chimney. We're going to check on him again before the storm hits." "You think he's okay?" I asked. "Probably just sleeping or hard of hearing," Martinez said, but I could tell he wasn't entirely convinced. "But with this storm coming, we need to make sure. If you see anything unusual or need help, call 911. The roads will be impassable once the snow starts, but we've got snowmobiles and emergency teams on standby." He handed me his card and left. I watched him drive down toward Mr. Garrett's house, his red and blue lights reflecting off the white landscape. The storm started that night around 9 p.m. At first, it was just steady snowfall, but within an hour, it had turned into a full-blown blizzard. The wind howled around my house, rattling the windows and making the walls creak. I could barely see 10 feet outside through the swirling snow. I was sitting on my couch, working on a logo design for a client when the power went out. The sudden darkness was jarring. My computer screen went black, the overhead lights died, and the constant hum of the refrigerator stopped. The only sound was the wind screaming outside. I grabbed my flashlight from the coffee table, I'd set it there earlier, anticipating this, and made my way to the utility room where I kept the generator. It took me about 20 minutes to get it started and running. The generator couldn't power the whole house, but it gave me lights in the kitchen and living room and kept the refrigerator going. By the time I got everything sorted out, it was almost 2 a.m. I was exhausted, but too wired from the adrenaline to sleep. I decided to make some coffee and wait for the storm to calm down. That's when I walked into the kitchen and looked out the back window. Mr. Garrett was standing in my backyard. He was about 30 feet from the house, directly in my line of sight through the kitchen window. The snow was falling so heavily that I could barely make out his shape, but I knew it was him. He was wearing his brown Carhartt jacket, the same one I'd seen him wear every time I passed his house, and his white hair was visible even through the blizzard. My first thought was that he needed help. Maybe his power was out or his furnace had broken, and he'd walked through the storm to my house looking for assistance. But something about the way he was standing made me hesitate. He wasn't moving at all. His arms hung straight down at his sides, and he was facing directly toward my kitchen window, just standing there, staring, in the middle of a blizzard, at 2 in the morning. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it out the window, trying to see him more clearly. The beam caught his face, and that's when I noticed something wrong. His skin looked blue. Not just the kind of blue you get from being cold, but a deep, dark blue, like someone who had been frozen for hours. His glasses reflected the flashlight beam, 2 bright circles where his eyes should be. I knocked on the window and waved, trying to get his attention. "Mr. Gareth!" I shouted, even though I knew he probably couldn't hear me through the glass and the wind. "Are you okay? Come to the door!" He didn't react. He didn't wave back, didn't nod, didn't even blink. He just kept staring at the window with that frozen blue face. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. Something was very wrong here. I made a quick decision. I would go outside and help him, bring him inside where it was warm and figure out what was going on. I grabbed my heavy winter coat from the closet, pulled on my boots, and wrapped a scarf around my face. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the back door. When I opened it, the wind hit me like a physical force. Snow blasted into the kitchen, and the cold was so intense it hurt to breathe. "Mr. Garrett!" I screamed into the storm. "Come inside! It's too cold out there!" I stepped out onto my back porch and shined my flashlight toward where he had been standing. He was still there, in the exact same position, arms at his sides, staring at me. But something had changed. He looked closer now. Not by much, maybe 5 feet, but I was certain he had been farther away before. I hadn't seen him move, but he was definitely closer. "Mr. Garrett, you need to come inside right now!" I took a step down from the porch into the snow, which was already up to my knees. The wind gusted, blowing snow directly into my eyes. I blinked hard, trying to clear my vision. When I opened my eyes again, Mr. Garrett was even closer. He was now only about 20 feet from the porch. He still hadn't moved his legs. He was still in that same rigid position, arms at his sides, staring at me. But somehow, in the split second I had blinked, he had moved 10 feet closer. My heart started pounding. This wasn't right. This wasn't possible. I stared at him, refusing to blink, trying to understand what I was seeing. The flashlight beam illuminated his face more clearly now, and what I saw made my stomach turn. His eyes were completely white. No pupils, no irises, just white, frozen orbs staring directly at me. His mouth was slightly open, and I could see frost coating his lips and chin. His skin wasn't just blue, it was the color of someone who had been dead for days. I blinked. I couldn't help it. My eyes were watering from the cold and the wind, and in that fraction of a second, he moved again. Now he was 10 feet away, right at the edge of the porch steps, close enough that I could see every detail of his frozen face, close enough that I could see he wasn't breathing. No fog came from his mouth, no rise and fall of his chest, nothing. Terror shot through me like electricity. I stumbled backward, nearly falling, and scrambled back into the kitchen. I slammed the door shut and locked it, then engaged the deadbolt with shaking hands. I pressed my back against the door, breathing hard, my heart hammering in my chest. What the hell was that? What was I seeing? I forced myself to look out the kitchen window again. Mr. Garrett was standing right there, on the other side of the glass. His face was pressed against the window, those white eyes staring directly into mine. He was so close I could see the individual ice crystals in his hair and the blue-gray tone of his frozen skin. I screamed and jumped back from the window. I ran into the living room and grabbed my cell phone, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold it. No signal. The storm had knocked out the cell towers. I needed to call for help. I needed to call Officer Martinez. I needed to tell someone that something was very, very wrong with Mr. Garrett. The landline. I had a landline phone in the house that I barely ever used. I ran to the hallway and picked up the receiver. Dead. The phone lines were down too. I was completely cut off. No cell service, no landline, no way to contact anyone. And something that looked like my dead neighbor was standing outside my kitchen window. Dead neighbor. The thought hit me like a truck. What if Mr. Garrett was already dead? What if that's why he looked frozen? What if Officer Martinez and the other deputies had found him dead in his house and somehow, I couldn't finish the thought. It was too impossible, too insane. I went back to the kitchen, keeping my distance from the window, and looked out. Mr. Garrett was gone. The spot where he had been standing was empty. The snow was falling so heavily that I couldn't see any footprints, but there was definitely no one there now. I checked every window in the house, looking out into the darkness and the storm. Nothing. No sign of him anywhere. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe the stress of the storm and the isolation had made me see things that weren't there. Maybe I had been half asleep and dreamed the whole thing. But I knew that wasn't true. I had seen him. I had seen his frozen blue face and his white eyes. I had seen him move closer every time I blinked. I spent the rest of the night sitting in my living room with all the lights on, a baseball bat across my lap, watching the windows. Every shadow made me jump. Every creak of the house settling made my heart race, but nothing else happened. The storm continued to rage outside, and I sat there, wide awake, waiting for dawn. The sun came up around 7:30 a.m., though you could barely tell through the thick gray clouds and falling snow. The storm had lessened somewhat. The wind wasn't as violent, and the snow was falling steadily rather than in blinding sheets, but it was still coming down hard. My backyard was buried under at least 3 feet of fresh snow, maybe more in the drifts. I hadn't slept at all. I'd spent the entire night in the living room watching, waiting, jumping at every sound. Now, in the pale morning light, the terror of the previous night felt distant and unreal. Had I really seen what I thought I'd seen? Or had I been hallucinating from exhaustion and stress? I made coffee and forced myself to eat some toast, though I had no appetite. I kept looking out the kitchen window at the spot where Mr. Garrett had been standing. The snow was completely undisturbed. There were no footprints, no indentations, nothing to suggest anyone had been there. But the image of his frozen face pressed against my window wouldn't leave my mind. Around 10 a.m., I heard an engine outside. I ran to the front window and saw a sheriff's department snowmobile pulling up to my house. Officer Martinez climbed off, wearing a heavy winter suit and carrying a radio. I threw open the front door before he could knock. "Officer Martinez, thank God you're here." He looked surprised by my reaction. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm just doing a welfare check, making sure everyone made it through the night okay. How are you holding up?" "I need to talk to you about Mr. Garrett," I said quickly. "Something happened last night. Something strange." Martinez's expression changed. "Can I come inside?" I stepped back and let him in. He stomped the snow off his boots and followed me into the living room. I noticed he looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. "What about Mr. Garrett?" he asked carefully. "I saw him last night," I said. "He was standing in my backyard during the storm, at like 2 a.m. I tried to get him to come inside, but he just stood there staring at me, and his face looked blue, like he was frozen. And then I stopped, realizing how crazy this was going to sound. "He what?" Martinez prompted gently. "He got closer every time I blinked," I said quietly.
I know that sounds insane, but I swear that's what happened. He didn't walk, he just appeared closer. And his eyes were white, like completely white. Officer Martinez was silent for a long moment. He looked down at his hands, then back at me. Mr. Mitchell, I need to tell you something. We found Mr. Garrett yesterday afternoon. He's dead. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, even though part of me had already known. What happened? His furnace broke down during the cold snap earlier this week. Best we can tell, he froze to death sometime Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning. We found him in his living room chair. He was wearing his brown Carhartt jacket, probably trying to stay warm when the heat went out. Tuesday night. That was 3 days before I saw him in my backyard. I'm so sorry, Martinez continued. I wanted to tell you yesterday, but we were trying to notify his family first, and then the storm hit. We couldn't get the body out until the road's clear. He was dead for 3 days, I said slowly. And I saw him last night, in my backyard. Martinez looked uncomfortable. Mr. Mitchell, you were probably just exhausted and stressed from the storm. In situations like that, people can see things. I'm not crazy, I interrupted. I saw him. His face was pressed against my kitchen window. He was right there.
I believe you saw something, Martinez said carefully. But Mr. Garrett is dead. His body is still in his house. There's no way. His radio crackled. A dispatcher's voice came through, urgent and staticky. All units, we have a report from residents on County Road 47. Homeowner reporting a person standing in their yard. Description matches the Garrett deceased. Martinez and I stared at each other. He grabbed his radio. This is Martinez. Copy that. What's the exact location? The dispatcher gave an address. It was only about 2 miles from my house. I'm responding, Martinez said into the radio. He looked at me. I need to go check this out. I'm coming with you, I said firmly. Mr. Mitchell, I'm coming with you, I repeated. If someone else is seeing what I saw, then I'm not crazy, and you're going to need someone who knows what they're looking at. Martinez hesitated, then nodded. Get your warmest clothes and stay close to me. 5 minutes later, I was on the back of his snowmobile, holding on tight as we raced through the snow-covered landscape. The storm had calmed even more, though snow was still falling steadily. We passed abandoned cars buried in drifts and downed power lines hanging across the road. When we reached the address, a woman was standing on her front porch, wrapped in a blanket and looking terrified. She was probably in her 60s, with gray hair and wide, frightened eyes. "Thank God you're here," she said as we pulled up. "He's in my backyard. He's just standing there. I don't know what to do." "Where exactly?" Martinez asked. She pointed toward the side of her house. "Back there, by the tree line. He's been there for over an hour. I called you guys as soon as I saw him, but he won't leave. He just stands there, staring at my window." The fear in her voice was identical to the fear I'd felt last night. I knew exactly what she was seeing. "Stay here," Martinez told her. Then he looked at me. "You too." But I followed him anyway, trudging through the deep snow around the side of the house. When we reached the backyard, Martinez stopped abruptly. Mr. Garrett was there. He was standing about 40 feet from the house, near a cluster of bare trees. Same brown jacket, same white hair, same rigid posture with his arms hanging at his sides. And even from this distance, I could see his face was that same horrible blue color. "Jesus Christ," Martinez whispered. He pulled out his flashlight, even though it was daytime, and shined it toward the figure. "Mr. Garrett? Harold Garrett?" The figure didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there, facing the house. "That's impossible," Martinez said. "His body is still—" "I saw him yesterday. He was dead.
He was definitely dead. "I told you," I said quietly. "That's what I saw last night." Martinez started walking toward the figure, his hand on his service weapon. "Sir, you need to identify yourself. This is the sheriff's department." I grabbed his arm. "Don't get close to him, and don't blink." "What?" "Don't blink," I repeated. "That's when he moves." Martinez looked at me like I was insane, but something in my voice must have convinced him. He kept his eyes fixed on the figure and took another step forward. "Sir, I need you to respond," he called out. "This is your final warning." Nothing. The figure just stood there in the falling snow. Martinez blinked, just a quick, involuntary blink, and the figure was closer. Not by much, maybe just 5 feet, but it was definitely, unmistakably closer than it had been a second before. "Holy shit," Martinez breathed. "Did you see that?" "Yeah," I said. "Don't blink again." We stood there, both of us staring at the figure, our eyes starting to water from the cold and the strain of not blinking. The figure stared back with those horrible white eyes.
"What do we do?" I asked. "I don't know," Martinez admitted. I don't understand what I'm looking at." The figure's mouth opened slowly. A sound came out, faint but audible even over the wind. It was a long, low moan, like someone in terrible pain, or like air escaping from something that had been sealed for too long. Martinez's radio crackled again. "Martinez, we have another report. County Road 18, same description. What the hell is going on out there?" Another sighting. That meant there were at least 3 people who had seen this thing, maybe more. "Request backup," Martinez said into his radio, his voice shaking slightly. I don't know how to explain this, but we need backup, now." The figure took a step forward, an actual step this time, not just appearing closer. Its leg moved stiffly, mechanically, like someone learning to walk for the first time. Then another step. It was moving toward us. "Back to the snowmobile," Martinez said. "Now." We turned and ran, struggling through the deep snow, not looking back. When we reached the front of the house, Martinez practically threw himself onto the snowmobile. I jumped on behind him, and we took off, spraying snow behind us. "Where are we going?" I shouted over the engine. "Garrett's house," Martinez shouted back. "I need to confirm his body is still there. I need to see it with my own eyes." We drove through the storm for another 10 minutes before reaching Mr. Garrett's property. His small farmhouse looked abandoned, with snow piled against the doors and windows. There was yellow police tape across the front door. Martinez parked the snowmobile, and we trudged through the snow to the entrance. He pulled out a key and unlocked the door, ducking under the police tape. The inside of the house was freezing, probably the same temperature as outside, since the furnace hadn't worked in days. "In here," Martinez said, leading me toward the living room. Mr. Garrett's body was still sitting in his recliner, exactly as they'd found him. He was wearing the brown car hat jacket, and his skin was a grayish-blue color. His eyes were closed, his mouth slightly open. He looked exactly like what he was, a dead man who had frozen to death. But something was wrong, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. "His eyes," I said suddenly. "Open his eyes." "What? No, I can't." "Open his eyes," I insisted. "Please." Martinez hesitated, then pulled on a pair of latex gloves from his pocket. He reached out and gently tried to open one of the corpse's eyelids.
It wouldn't budge. The eyelid was frozen shut. He tried harder and finally managed to lift it slightly. Underneath, where the eyes should have been, there was nothing but white. No iris, no pupil, just white, like a hard-boiled egg. "That's not normal," Martinez said. "That's not what happens when someone freezes to death." A sound from outside made us both freeze. It was the crunch of footsteps in the snow, slow, deliberate footsteps approaching the house. We looked at each other, then moved to the window. Standing in the front yard, about 20 feet from the house, was another figure. Same brown jacket, same white hair, same frozen blue face. But Mr. Garrett's body was still sitting in the chair behind us. "There's two of them," I whispered. As we watched, another figure emerged from the trees at the edge of the property, then another, and another, all identical, all wearing the same brown jacket, all with the same frozen blue faces and white eyes, all staring at the house. "We need to leave," Martinez said, "right now." We ran for the front door, but when Martinez opened it, there was a figure standing on the porch, blocking our way. We could see its white eyes up close, inches from our faces. Its mouth opened in that same horrible moan. Martinez slammed the door shut and locked it. "Back door, go!" We ran through the house to the kitchen. Through the window, we could see more figures gathering in the backyard, at least a dozen of them now, all standing perfectly still, all staring at the house. "They're surrounding us," I said, my voice rising in panic. "We're trapped." Martinez pulled out his radio with shaking hands. "This is Officer Martinez requesting immediate assistance at the Garrick residence on County Road 45. I don't know how to describe this. Multiple hostile entities. We're trapped inside the house. I repeat, requesting immediate assistance." The radio crackled back. "Martinez, what do you mean, multiple entities? How many suspects are we talking about?" "I don't know," Martinez said. "Maybe 20, maybe more. They all look the same. They all look like Harold Garrett."
There was a long pause. Then, "Martinez, are you saying there are 20 people who look like the deceased?" "I know how it sounds," Martinez shouted, "but that's what I'm seeing. Send everyone you've got, and bring the National Guard if you can. Something is very wrong here." A window shattered in the living room. We heard the sound of something climbing through, feet hitting the floor. The moaning sound started again, multiple voices now, coming from different parts of the house. "Upstairs," I said. "There might be a second floor we can barricade ourselves in." We ran for the stairs and climbed them two at a time. The second floor had 3 small bedrooms and a bathroom. We chose the bedroom at the end of the hall, figuring it would give us the most distance from the stairs. Martinez shoved a dresser against the door while I checked the window. The bedroom faced the side yard, and from this angle I could see the full scope of what was happening. There had to be at least 40 figures now, maybe more, all standing in the snow around the house. They formed a loose circle, all facing the building, all perfectly still except for their mouths, which opened and closed in that rhythmic moaning, and they were all identical copies of Mr. Garrett. "This isn't real," Martinez said behind me. His voice was shaking. "This can't be real. This doesn't happen." "Well, it's happening," I said. I pulled out my phone. Still no signal. "How long until backup gets here?" "In this storm? Assuming they even believe me and send someone? Maybe an hour, maybe more." We heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, dragging footsteps. Multiple sets of them. The figures were coming up. "The bathroom," I said. "It might have a smaller window we can fit through, if we can get onto the roof." A loud bang interrupted me. Something was hitting the bedroom door, trying to break through. The dresser scraped across the floor an inch. Another bang, another inch. We ran to the bathroom and locked the door behind us. It was a small space with an old-fashioned bathtub, a sink, and a tiny window above the toilet. Martinez climbed onto the toilet and tried to open the window. It was painted shut. "Stand back," he said, pulling out his gun. He wrapped his jacket around the barrel to muffle the sound, then shot the window twice. Glass shattered. Cold air and snow blew in. The bedroom door crashed open. We could hear the moaning, louder now, right outside the bathroom. Martinez knocked out the remaining glass and looked through the window. "There's a section of roof right below. If we can get down there, maybe we can jump to that snowbank. It's deep enough to break our fall." "Maybe? You got a better idea?" The bathroom door shook as something heavy hit it. We didn't have time to argue. Martinez went first, squeezing through the window and dropping onto the slanted roof below. I followed, cutting my hand on a piece of broken glass but managing to get through. The roof was covered in ice and snow, and we had to move carefully to avoid sliding off. Behind us, a pale hand reached through the broken window, followed by a head. The figure pulled itself through with mechanical efficiency and started crawling across the roof toward us. "Jump!" Martinez shouted. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. We leaped off the roof together, falling about 15 feet into a massive snowbank. The snow cushioned our impact, but we were completely buried. I clawed my way to the surface, gasping for air, and pulled Martinez up after me. The snowmobile was about 50 feet away, near the front of the house. We ran for it, our legs burning from the effort of running through the deep snow. I glanced back once and saw dozens of figures pouring out of the house, climbing through windows and doors, all moving with that same stiff, mechanical gait, all moaning in unison. Martinez started the snowmobile, and I jumped on behind him. We took off just as the first figure reached us, its frozen hand brushing my jacket. We didn't stop driving until we reached the sheriff's station in town, nearly 15 miles away. When we burst through the doors, snow-covered and wild-eyed, several deputies stared at us in shock. "The Garrett house," Martinez gasped, out of breath. "Everyone needs to stay away from the Garrett house, and someone needs to call the state police and the FBI and anyone else you can think of, because what's happening out there? I don't have words for what's happening out there."
The sheriff's station became a command center. Within 2 hours, the storm had finally started to clear enough for emergency vehicles to move. The roads were still barely passable, but several more deputies arrived on snowmobiles, along with 2 state troopers who happened to be in the area. Sheriff Wade, a gray-haired man in his 50s who looked like he hadn't dealt with anything more serious than drunk driving cases in years, listened to Martinez's report with increasing disbelief. "Let me get this straight," he said slowly. "You're telling me there are 40 copies of Harold Garrett walking around his property?" "I know how it sounds," Martinez said, "but Mitchell saw it too, and we have multiple civilian reports of sightings." "How many reports?" the sheriff asked. A young female deputy named Reeves answered. "7 so far, sir, all within a 5-mile radius of the Garrett property, all describing the same thing, a figure matching Garrett's description, standing in yards and staring at houses. Some people reported the figure getting closer when they looked away or blinked." Sheriff Wade rubbed his temples. "This is insane. You're all telling me ghost stories." "Send someone to check the Garrett house," I said. "You'll see we're not making this up." The sheriff looked at me for a long moment, then picked up his radio. "Dispatch, send units to the Garrett residence. Approach with caution. Report what you find." We waited in tense silence. It took about 20 minutes before the radio crackled back to life. "Sheriff, this is Deputy Morrison. You need to see this. I don't know how to describe what I'm seeing."
"Try," the sheriff said grimly. "There are people everywhere, dozens of them, maybe more. They're all standing around the house, all wearing the same clothes. They're all—" His voice trailed off. "They're all what, Morrison?" "They're all the same person, sir. They all have the exact same face." The sheriff's hand tightened on the radio. "Get out of there. Return to station immediately." "Sir, they're not moving. They're just standing there. Should I try to—" "Get out of there now," the sheriff shouted. There was a pause. Then Morrison's voice came back, higher and more panicked. "They're moving. They're all moving toward me. I'm getting back in the vehicle. The transmission cut off. "Morrison! Morrison, respond!" The sheriff waited, but there was only static. He looked around the room at the assembled deputies. "Okay, I don't know what the hell is going on, but we need to treat this as a serious threat. Reeves, contact the state police and request as much backup as they can send. Tell them we have a mass incident of unknown origin. Martinez, you and Thompson get the road barriers. I want roadblocks on every route leading to the Garrett property. Nobody gets in or out." "What about Morrison?" someone asked. "We'll send a team to extract him once we have enough people. Right now, our priority is containment."
My phone suddenly buzzed. I looked down in surprise. The cell towers must have come back online. I had 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. Most were from friends checking if I was okay after the storm, but 3 of the messages were from numbers I didn't recognize. I opened the first one. It was a photo. My blood ran cold. The photo showed my own house, taken from my backyard. The angle was wrong, though. It was taken from ground level, looking up at my kitchen window. And in the window, I could see myself from last night, standing in my kitchen with the flashlight. Someone, or something, had taken a photo of me while standing in my backyard during the blizzard. The second message was another photo. This one showed me sleeping in my bed. The angle suggested it was taken from inside my bedroom, from the corner near the closet. I never went near that closet last night. I never saw anyone in my room. The third message was just text. "We watched you. We're still watching. We're coming." I showed the messages to Martinez. His face went pale. "When did these come in?" he asked. I checked the timestamps. They were sent around 3 a.m. last night, but they didn't deliver until just now when the service came back. Sheriff Wade looked at the photos. "Where's your house, Mitchell?" "County Road 52, about 3 miles from here." "Reeves, send a unit to check Mitchell's property." "Sir, we don't have the resources." "Do it," the sheriff barked. The next 3 hours were chaos. More reports came in from all over the area. People were seeing the figures everywhere, standing in fields, on roadsides, in driveways, always the same description, always matching Mr. Garrett's appearance. The reports covered a radius that was expanding outward from the Garrett property like a ripple.
Morrison never checked back in. When a team finally reached his vehicle, they found it empty with the door hanging open and the engine still running. No sign of Morrison, no blood, no struggle. Just an empty patrol car in the middle of the road. By nightfall, the situation had deteriorated even further. The National Guard had been called in, and military vehicles were setting up a perimeter around the entire area. News helicopters circled overhead. Apparently, someone had leaked the story, and now every major network was covering what they were calling the Minnesota incident. I sat in a small office at the sheriff's station, watching the news coverage on someone's phone. The reporters were speculating about everything from a mass hallucination caused by the cold to some kind of experimental military project to a genuine paranormal event. None of them knew what was really happening. Hell, we didn't know what was really happening. Martinez came in and sat down across from me. He looked exhausted. "They evacuated your house," he said. "Nothing there, but they found something in your bedroom." "What?" He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was taken inside my bedroom closet. Someone had carved words into the wooden back wall of the closet. The same words repeated over and over in rough, jagged letters. "We are cold, let us in. We are cold, let us in. We are cold, let us in." The carving covered the entire back wall, floor to ceiling. It would have taken hours to do that, which meant something had been inside my closet for hours while I was in the house. "There's more," Martinez said quietly. He swiped to another photo. This one showed my bed from above, as if the photo had been taken from the ceiling. In the photo, I was asleep in the bed, but standing around the bed, circling it like predators, were 5 figures, all Mr. Garrett, all with those white eyes, all staring down at me while I slept. "When was this taken?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The metadata says 4:47 a.m. last night, about an hour before you woke up." I felt sick. While I had been sleeping, thinking I was alone, 5 of those things had been standing around my bed, watching me. For how long? What would have happened if I had woken up and seen them? A loud commotion outside the office made us both jump. We rushed out to find the main room in chaos. Every deputy was talking at once. Phones were ringing. Radios were crackling with overlapping transmissions. Sheriff Wade was standing in the center of it all, holding a radio and looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last few hours. When he saw Martinez, he beckoned us over. "It's spreading faster," he said. "We're getting reports from towns 15 miles away now, 20 miles. The figures are showing up everywhere. And there's something else." "What?" I asked. "They're not just appearing randomly anymore. They're targeting specific people, following them. The pattern suggests—" He paused, looking grim. "It suggests they're hunting." "Hunting for what?" Martinez asked. "Warmth," a new voice said. We turned to see a woman in her 40s wearing a CDC jacket. She had just arrived and was shaking snow off her coat. "Dr. Sarah Chen, Centers for Disease Control. I was studying cold weather exposure patterns in Duluth when your situation was reported. I think I know what's happening here." Sheriff Wade gestured for her to continue. "Harold Garrett froze to death," Dr. Chen said. "But something happened to him in that process. The extreme cold, combined with something we don't fully understand, possibly the polar vortex creating some kind of atmospheric anomaly, caused a phenomenon I've only seen theorized in research papers. His consciousness, or some echo of it, became trapped in a state between life and death, frozen in that moment of dying." "That's impossible," the sheriff said. "So are 40 identical copies of a dead man walking around in a blizzard," Dr. Chen shot back. "We're past impossible here. We're in territory that science hasn't adequately explored." She pulled out a tablet and showed us thermal imaging from a helicopter flyover of the Garrett property. The figures showed up as dark blue shapes, much colder than the ambient temperature. They were colder than the snow itself. "They're not alive in any conventional sense," Dr. Chen continued. "They're more like frozen echoes, imprints of Garrett's final moments, and like any frozen thing, they're drawn to heat, to warmth, to life. The more they interact with the living, the stronger they become. Each person who sees them, who's afraid of them, somehow feeds them energy. That's why they're multiplying." "So what do we do?" I asked. "How do we stop them?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "I don't know. Traditional methods won't work. You can't kill something that's already dead. You can't contain something that can teleport every time you blink. The only thing I can suggest is—" The lights went out. The entire sheriff's station plunged into darkness. Emergency lights kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in a dim red glow. Through the windows, I could see the entire town had lost power. "Generator should kick in," Sheriff Wade said. "Give it a second." But the generator didn't start. The building remained eerily quiet except for the wind outside and our breathing. Then we heard it. The moaning. That horrible, hollow moaning sound coming from multiple directions at once. It was outside the building, and it was getting closer. "Everyone to the armory," Sheriff Wade ordered. "Now!" We ran down a hallway to a reinforced room where the department kept weapons and equipment. Wade unlocked it, and we piled inside. Me, Martinez, the sheriff, Dr. Chen, and 4 other deputies. Wade slammed the door and locked it from the inside. The room had no windows, just concrete walls and a single door. We were trapped, but we were safe. At least, that's what I thought. The moaning grew louder. We could hear footsteps in the hallway outside. Not running, just walking. Slow, methodical footsteps, multiple sets of them. The footsteps stopped right outside the armory door. Then the knocking started. Not aggressive pounding, but gentle knocking. Tap, 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 like someone politely asking to be let in. "Don't open it," I said quickly. "Whatever you do, don't open that door." "We're not that stupid," Martinez muttered. The knocking continued for minutes. Then it stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the knocking.
Dr. Chen was frantically typing on her tablet, which was still connected to some kind of satellite internet. "I'm reading reports from other locations," she said. "This is happening simultaneously across a 50-mile radius now. Every police station, every emergency shelter, every place where people have gathered for safety. The figures are surrounding them." "What do they want?" someone asked. "We are cold. Let us in," I said quietly, remembering the words carved in my closet. "They want to get warm. They want to be alive again." "But they can't come back to life," Dr. Chen said. "So they're trying to, I don't know, merge with us, replace us, become us?" A scraping sound came from above.
We all looked up at the ceiling. Something was moving up there, in the crawl space above the armory. "That's impossible," Sheriff Wade said. "There's no access to that space from inside the building. You'd have to come in from outside, from the roof." The scraping continued, moving back and forth across the ceiling. Dust drifted down from the tiles. Whatever was up there, it was heavy. Martinez aimed his flashlight at the ceiling. In the beam, we could see the tiles starting to shift. Something was pushing them aside from above. A hand emerged through the gap, a blue-white hand with frost covering the fingers. Then another hand. The hands gripped the edge of the ceiling tiles and pulled. The tiles broke apart, and a figure dropped down into the room with us. It was Mr. Garrett. He landed in a crouch, then slowly stood up. His white eyes surveyed the room, looking at each of us in turn. When his gaze fell on me, his head tilted slightly, like a dog recognizing its owner. "The window," he said. His voice was wrong, too deep, too hollow, like it was coming from somewhere far away. "You closed the window. I was so cold. Why didn't you let me in?" "You're not real," I said, my voice shaking. "Mr. Garrett is dead." "Dead," the figure repeated. "Yes, so cold, froze to death, alone, in the dark, so cold." Its mouth opened wider than should be possible. "Let me in." Sheriff Wade pulled his gun and fired 3 shots directly into the figure's chest. The bullets passed through, leaving holes that didn't bleed. The figure didn't even flinch. "You can't shoot cold," Dr. Chen said. "You can't kill ice." The figure took a step toward me. "You saw me. You were the first one who saw me. You can let me in. You can let me be warm again." "Stay back!" Martinez moved between me and the figure, his gun raised, even though he'd just seen bullets do nothing.
More scraping sounds came from the ceiling. More tiles were being moved. 2 more figures dropped down. Then 3 more. Within seconds, there were 8 of them in the armory with us, and more were coming through the ceiling. "The door!" Sheriff Wade shouted. "Everyone out!" We scrambled for the door. Wade unlocked it, and we burst out into the hallway. The hallway was full of figures, at least 20 of them, all standing perfectly still, all watching us with those white eyes. "Back inside," someone yelled, but it was too late. The figures behind us in the armory were pushing forward. We were trapped between 2 groups. The figures closed in from both sides. That's when I noticed something. The emergency lights in the hallway were reflecting off something on the floor. Ice. The floor was covered in a thin layer of ice, and it was spreading, creeping toward us. "They're freezing the building," Dr. Chen said. "That's how they're spreading, through the cold. They're turning everything they touch into a conduit." One of the deputies, a young guy named Harrison, suddenly screamed. I looked over and saw frost spreading across his hand where he'd touched the wall. Within seconds, his entire arm was covered in ice. He tried to move, but his arm was frozen to the wall. The nearest figure walked up to Harrison. It placed its frozen hand on his chest. Harrison's scream cut off abruptly. His eyes went white. The color drained from his skin, turning it that same blue-white color. "No," Martinez breathed. "No, no, no!" Harrison's body convulsed once, then went still. When he looked at us again, his eyes were white. He smiled, but it wasn't Harrison's smile. It was wrong, too wide, too cold. "I'm warm now," Harrison's body said in that hollow voice. "So warm. Thank you." Harrison, or the thing wearing Harrison's body, turned and walked toward us with the other figures. "Run!" Sheriff Wade shouted, unnecessarily. We were already running.
We raced through the corridors of the sheriff's station, the sound of footsteps echoing behind us. The building was a maze of hallways and offices, and in the dim emergency lighting, everything looked the same. We turned corner after corner, desperately looking for an exit. "There!" Martinez pointed. A door marked "Emergency Exit" glowed faintly in the red light. We crashed through the door and found ourselves in the parking lot. The storm had started up again, snow falling heavily. The parking lot was full of abandoned vehicles, and beyond them, standing in neat rows like an army, were hundreds of figures, maybe thousands, all identical, all staring at the building. "Oh my God," someone whispered. The figures didn't move. They just stood there in the falling snow, an impossible crowd of frozen copies, all watching us. Dr. Chen grabbed my arm. "The cold, that's the connection. The cold is what's sustaining them. If we could somehow—" "Raise the temperature?" I finished. "How? It's -20 degrees out here." "Fire," Sheriff Wade said. "We need fire, lots of it." Martinez looked around frantically. "The gas station, 2 blocks down. If we could get there, rupture the tanks, that would level half the town," Wade protested. "The town is already lost," Dr. Chen said, gesturing at the army of figures. "Look at them. There are thousands now. By tomorrow, there will be tens of thousands. This won't stop spreading until it consumes everything. Fire might be our only chance." Sheriff Wade looked at his town, at the buildings he'd protected for 20 years, then at the inhuman army surrounding us. His jaw tightened. "Okay, we do it, but we need to get everyone to evacuate first. Martinez, radio any units still responding. Tell them to get everyone out. Head south, away from here. Don't stop until they're at least 50 miles away."
"What about us?" I asked. Wade looked at me grimly. "Someone needs to make sure the fire starts. Someone needs to stay behind." "I'll do it," Martinez said immediately. "This is my town, my people." "We'll all do it," Dr. Chen said. "We've all been exposed. We've all looked into their eyes. If we leave, we might carry whatever this is with us. Better to end it here." The figures began moving. All at once, like they were controlled by a single mind, they started walking toward us. Slow, inexorable, hundreds of frozen feet crunching through the snow. "No more debate," Wade said. "Move!" We ran toward the vehicles. I jumped into a snowplow that had its keys still in the ignition, while the others piled into a large SUV. We started the engines and drove straight toward the advancing wall of figures. The figures didn't try to dodge. We plowed through them, literally in my case, and they shattered like ice sculptures, breaking apart into fragments that scattered across the snow. But within seconds of passing them, I looked in the mirror and saw the fragments pulling themselves back together, reforming into complete figures. "They can't be destroyed!" I shouted into the radio that connected me to the others. "Just keep driving," Wade's voice crackled back. We raced through the streets of the town, running over any figures that got in our way. The gas station came into view, a small building with 2 pumps and several large storage tanks behind it. Martinez and I jumped out of our vehicles and ran inside. The station was abandoned but unlocked. We grabbed every flammable thing we could find: lighter fluid, motor oil, propane tanks for camping. "We need to rupture the main tanks," Martinez said, heading toward the back where the large underground storage tanks were located. Outside, the figures were closing in, hundreds of them, moving faster now, like they sensed what we were trying to do. Dr. Chen fired shots from the SUV, trying to slow them down. Sheriff Wade was doing something with the gas pumps, overriding the emergency shutoff and letting fuel spray freely across the concrete. I helped Martinez attach several propane tanks to the access panel of the main storage tank. We didn't have explosives, but propane under pressure, exposed to sparks, would do the job. "How do we ignite it?" I asked. Martinez pulled out a road flare from his pocket. "This. On my count, we run for the vehicles. We've got maybe 30 seconds before this place goes up." "Will 30 seconds be enough to get clear?" "Probably not," he admitted, "but it's all we've got." A figure appeared around the corner of the building. Mr. Garrett's frozen face stared at us. "Cold," it said. "Why do you fight the cold? The cold is peace. The cold is eternal." More figures emerged behind it. We were surrounded. "Now!" Martinez shouted. He lit the flare and jammed it against the propane tanks. "Run!" We sprinted for the vehicles. The figures tried to grab us, their frozen hands reaching out, but we dodged and weaved. I made it to the snowplow and started the engine.
Through the windshield, I saw Martinez reaching for the SUV. Then, I saw one of the figures grab him from behind. "Martinez!" I screamed. He looked at me, his eyes widening as frost spread across his jacket where the figure touched him. "Go!" he shouted. "David, go!" I slammed the snowplow into reverse, my heart breaking. Through the mirror, I saw Martinez struggling as more figures swarmed him. Dr. Chen and Sheriff Wade were in the SUV, already speeding away.
The gas station exploded. The blast was massive, a fireball that lit up the night sky and sent a wave of heat that I could feel even from 100 yards away. The shock wave rocked the snowplow, nearly flipping it. When I looked back, the entire gas station was engulfed in flames. Fire spread rapidly to the buildings nearby, jumping from structure to structure. The figures caught in the blast didn't scream, they simply evaporated, turned to steam by the sudden heat. I kept driving, following the SUV. We drove for miles, not stopping until we reached the evacuation point where the National Guard had set up. When I finally climbed out of the snowplow, my whole body was shaking. Sheriff Wade and Dr. Chen were already there, both covered in soot and ash. We stood together, watching the orange glow on the horizon that marked where our town was burning. "Did it work?" I asked. Dr. Chen checked her tablet. "The thermal scans show the temperature in the affected area rising rapidly. The figures within the fire zone are dissipating. Their thermal signatures are vanishing. And outside the fire zone?" She was quiet for a moment. "Still spreading, but slower now. Maybe the fire disrupted whatever was feeding them. Maybe it's given us time to coordinate a larger response." "Martinez," Wade said quietly. "Harrison, Morrison, how many others did we lose?" I didn't have an answer. Over the next week, I watched from a safe distance as the National Guard contained the situation. They used a combination of flamethrowers and controlled burns to destroy the remaining figures. The cold snap finally broke, and temperatures rose above freezing for the first time in weeks. With the warming trend, the figures became less stable. They moved slower, appeared less frequently. Within 10 days, they had stopped appearing entirely. The official story, the one reported by the news, was that a gas leak caused an explosion that killed several people and forced the evacuation of several small towns. There was no mention of frozen copies of dead men, no mention of the impossible things we had seen. Mr. Garrett's body was cremated. His house was demolished. The entire area where this had started was classified as a contamination zone, off limits to civilians. I moved to Arizona, somewhere warm, somewhere the temperature never drops below freezing. I can't stand the cold anymore. Even when the AC runs too high, I start to panic, remembering those white eyes staring at me through my kitchen window. Sometimes on the news, I see stories about unexplained disappearances during winter storms, people who vanished during blizzards and were never found. I wonder if they saw what I saw. I wonder if they're still out there, frozen copies multiplying in the darkness, waiting for the next cold snap. Dr. Chen contacts me occasionally. She's still studying the phenomenon, trying to understand what happened. She has a theory that climate change and the increasingly extreme polar vortexes are creating conditions where this could happen again. She's working with the CDC and FEMA to develop response protocols for what she calls Category F events, F for frozen. I asked her once if she thought we really stopped it, if we really destroyed all of them. She was quiet for a long time before answering. "I don't know," she finally said. "Temperature scans show normal readings now, no more anomalies. But David, we found something in the Garrett house after everything was over, carved into the walls of his basement, the same message over and over. I am not alone in the cold. There are others like me. We are waiting. We are so cold." "Others?" I asked, my blood running cold despite the Arizona heat. "You mean other people who froze to death alone?" Dr. Chen said.
other echoes trapped in that space between life and death. Garrett wasn't the first, and if the conditions are right again, another polar vortex, another person dying alone in the cold, he won't be the last. I hung up and looked out my window at the desert landscape, at the shimmering heat waves rising from the asphalt. I told myself I was safe here. The temperature would never drop low enough here. I was thousands of miles from Minnesota. But sometimes, at night, I dream about that blizzard. I dream about standing in my kitchen, looking out the window at a figure in my backyard. And when I blink, it's closer and closer and closer, until I wake up gasping, checking every corner of my bedroom, making sure I'm alone, making sure the air conditioning isn't running too cold, making sure that when I look out my window, there's nothing standing in my yard, watching me with white eyes. Because the thing about the cold is this: it always comes back. Summer ends, winter returns, and when it does, when the temperature drops and the blizzards roll in and people find themselves alone in the darkness, what happened in Minnesota could happen anywhere. And next time, we might not be able to stop it.
1 year later. I'm writing this down because I think people need to know the truth. The official story is a lie. What happened in Minnesota was real, and it's not over. Last week, there were reports of unusual activity during a blizzard in Montana. People seeing figures in the snow, figures that all look the same, figures that move closer when you blink. The news isn't covering it yet. The government is trying to keep it quiet, but it's starting again. Dr. Chen called me yesterday. She's heading to Montana with a CDC team. She asked me if I wanted to come, if I wanted to help them understand what they're dealing with. I told her no. I told her I've done my part. I've survived once, and that's enough. But I'm lying to myself. Because every time it gets cold, every time I see snow on the news, I remember Martinez sacrificing himself. I remember Sheriff Wade making the impossible choice to burn down his own town. I remember that we stopped it once, and maybe, just maybe, we can stop it again. So I'm booking a flight to Montana. Not because I'm brave, not because I'm a hero, but because I know what it's like to see those white eyes staring at you through your window. I know what it's like to feel that paralyzing fear, and if I can help even one person avoid that terror, if I can help stop this thing before it spreads like it did in Minnesota, then maybe Martinez's sacrifice wasn't in vain. Maybe we can learn to fight the cold. Maybe we can learn to survive what comes when the temperature drops and the dead don't stay dead. Or maybe I'm just a fool walking back into the nightmare. Either way, I'm going, because someone has to, and because I know the truth that everyone else is afraid to admit. The cold is patient, the cold is hungry, and the cold is coming for all of us.